Hey, welcome back to the shop. Thanks for stopping by. This week's video, I'm going to turn a twice turned ash bowl. So I've got a blank here that's been turned one time and dry. Same as most of them that I do. I've got a hot melt glue my faceplate on. I've got my center circle already located. So get that right on the center and shove it down hard. Then a bead of glue all the way around the outside. And you can probably see that it is at a round, that it's longer this way than it is this way. So first thing we'll do is we'll get it on the lathe and get it protruded up and see what we can make out of this. Okay, so we're all set up here. So I had a viewer on a previous video asking in the comments why most people turn the outside and finish it, then they come and turn the inside, and why I did the inside, then went to the outside and come back to the inside. Well, the outside of the bolt is what's going to get finished first, but you can tell by the inside that it's at a round as well. So it went uniformly at a round inside and outside. And so if I don't true up the inside, it won't be in perfect balance when I do the outside and get a finish on. And it is much easier to get a better finish when the entire thing is in balance. So that's why I do just touch the lip to get it flat and take the excess off the inside to make it round so it's not out of balance. Then I go out and do the outside. So that was the reasoning behind that. So nothing fancy on the inside, just round. Okay, so that's been cut all the way, and you can see now the difference in the thicknesses all the way around it. So back to the outside, we'll take you up top and we'll do the outside. This little peek at the outside with the abrasive paste completed, the microfine and the original. It's nice grain in this wood. It's almost like a curl right there, and changes color on one side of it and the other when you turn it. Alright, we'll get set up and hollow out the inside. Alright, so I didn't turn the camera on, I missed the entrance cuts here. So I got my wall thickness to where I want here on the lip. Just going to put a radius on the lip here now and clean up this little bit before the tension is out of the wood and things go around as they inevitably might. So we're good all the way around. That's actually a pretty decent cut on that, so I'll take it in a little farther. Just kind of curious to see what a negative rate scraper would do on that. It's pretty consistent right down to there. I'd like to try and leave the walls the same thickness until I get past this blended cut right here. And then if you recall the shape in the bottom, it runs away from the lid a little bit. And I leave a little bit extra in the bottom because I turn a concave recess in the bottom of the bowl so it'll sit smooth. And I need to have some obviously there that I can do that. Still needs a little more out of it, but I'm just going to double check my depth here. Still good. Something that's hard for beginners to master is getting the bottoms of bowls without ripples in them, so that when you hold it up to the light, it doesn't look like it's got a bunch of humps and bumps in it and reflects light differently. And it doesn't show much when you're looking at it like this, but when you have it finished and there's a shine on it and you've turned it up right, and the light can reflect off of the bottom of it, any bumps or ripples will be very noticeable. Now in a wood, especially like this, with these lines, so many grain lines and stuff going, when it's spinning, and other woods as well, it's really hard to see a bump or a dip or a hump in the bottom. And so you really have to go by feel. And when you're cutting them, if you have a hump, you have to be very light on the start, a little deeper in the center, very light coming out of it, the width of the hump. Otherwise you will cut too much out of the front and the back, and then you just keep chasing a little ditch into the bottom of your bowl till you run out of wood. Now this is ash, white ash. It's from Eastern Canada, and it is really porous. And you can see probably, you can tell that's not smooth even though it was cut with a very sharp chisel. It's a smooth cut, but you can feel every growth ring. There's a little indent between every one. And where they end like this, the fibers are almost sticking out. You can almost get a sliver off them. And those are going to sand off really easy. And so you have to be really careful when you're sanding these that you don't get too misshapen, because you can really amplify this feel, which isn't what you want to do. So I'm going to sand this up and see how we make out, and I'll bring it back. Okay, so I've got the inside now with the Hampshire sheen on it. It's all finished up inside and out, and I'm just going to take off the glue on the bottom and part it off the faceplate. And then I will reverse on a bigger faceplate with some hot melt glue and turn the bottom off. Once again, I mentioned before, when you're using a pointed tool like this, you only want to cut with one side, one cutting edge at a time, and not both. So ash is another one of those woods you need to be careful with when you're taking it off of the faceplate. Again, you can orient the grain. I'll back this out so you can see it. So this is the center of the tree here. The growth rings are this way, so the grain is running up and down the piece, and so I'm on the top of the grain right here. So put your chisel so that the tapered side is to the sacrificial block and the flat side is to the bowl. So a very light tap. And when you hear it, you can hear it start to come apart. And there it is. All right, I'm going to clean this up and we'll reverse mount this onto another faceplate and turn the bottom. For anyone that's new that hasn't seen this before, it's in some of my other videos. I always just clean this back up. The trick is to make the face of this just slightly concave. because you don't want the bowl sitting on a hump in the center. You want it to be on the outside, but not very concave, just very slightly. So I get this ready for the next bowl before I take it off. That's about how much that I leave in the center. And all that is that just leaves the space for the hot melt glue to have a spot to spread and attach to more surface area of this and to the bowl when I remount another one. I've shown this before, but just for anyone who hasn't seen it and wants to see how this all works, this is just a piece of kitchen countertop that was cut out of the sink. It's got a 3/4 inch plywood back on it, and I've added another 3/4 inch plywood back on it just to stabilize it so that it doesn't wobble around. And this surface is nice because your glue comes off it nice and clean, but it's enough adhesion that it'll stay together. So the first thing that I do is I make sure that there's no glue left on it from a previous bowl. I don't want any separation. It's good and clean. You can see there's lots of lines on this. I've turned a ton of bowls this way. Basically anything that's too big for my cold jaws, I put in this, unless it has a mortise on the bottom that I'm happy with. And in this case, I didn't put any mortise on, it's just how the blank was roughed, so I want to concave the bottom of it. So I measure the diameter of my bowl, then I come off the center, measure the radius, put a mark on here so I can take it off the lathe, lay it on a table, and turn my bowl upside down on the top. So the bowl is 9 7/8, so I want to go 4 1/2 plus 7/16, which of course is 4 15/16. I hold my pencil on there, so now I know that there's a mark already on here that works. So the outside of this dark mark is where I'm going to center. So this dark mark right here is where I'm going to center my bowl. So I'm going to put 6 spots of hot melt glue around the outside edge of this and put it back on, and then we'll turn the bottom off. So here's a look at how much glue is actually holding that on there, and it's never a problem if you're cautious when you do the bottom. I will take this little bit of glue off that's here and bring the tailstock up just for support while I take out these chuck marks from where it was roughed in on the metal lathe. And because it's very important to get it centered as perfectly as you can. That gives you a much better chance of having a nice flat sitting bowl. So we're going to take that glue off, move the tailstock up, and finish this bottom. I do this at low RPM, and because of the weight and the diameter of this faceplate, I don't turn this in reverse. I don't have a grub screw that holds this faceplate on to this lathe, and it's just the weight of this going backwards can make it come off. So I've never had an issue with that, but I know that weight is not safe to turn backwards. So we get it nicely balanced. I'm going to hold the bevel into the bottom of the bowl to push it to the faceplate. All I want to do is get the glue off, which is gone now. Making sure you have a really good hold on your chisel so it doesn't grab and go backwards on you. Closed flute to start. Closed flute just means that the angle that you're putting the chisel in at is this way. Open flute is this way. So I start my cuts this way. Gives me less chance of it kicking back. take my pointed tool so I can get in a little bit closer. Get as much of it off as I can before I take the tailstock away. Just checking with the straight edge to make sure that there's nothing in the center of the bowl that's out past the rim of this, and there's not. And I'm going to take a little tiny bit more off it. So now I can sand it up. Doesn't take very long, but I do think it's important to put the same amount of attention into the bottom as you do the rest of the bowl. So now I'm going to sand this up and I'll bring you back when I'm finished. So the sanding's done now, and I'm just going to put on some abrasive paste. So I've sanded up to 400 grit. Now I'm going to put the abrasive paste on both grits, the regular and the microfine. The way this works, once it stops coming off in your cloth, you know you've got it. Now I take a clean cloth and put on some microfine. Very careful to gather this bit that's over the edge and bring it back to the center so it doesn't scratch the outside that we've already finished. And that is the bottom done. So we'll put some Hampshire sheen on now. Now with the Hampshire sheen you can speed it up a little bit so that it buffs in a little better. A little bit of pressure at the start to get it melted and buffed into the wood. And once you get it buffed in, you just back off on the pressure a little bit to put a little bit of a shine on the top. There we go. Now, make sure the power's off to the lathe. And just slide this chisel right underneath each piece of glue and pop it off. Pull very tightly into the faceplate so you don't mark the bowl. You can hear that came loose. So anyone who was curious, this just pops right off. I'm at a hard angle to get that, but I'll pop that off. It comes off very clean. So you can see where the glue was. See how nicely that came off. So a clean piece of towel. You can see where the glue was on this. Right here. And a very light buff. Thanks again to everyone who subscribed to the channel. I really do appreciate your support. If you watched this video and like what you saw, please consider subscribing. I'd appreciate that as well. You can leave a thumbs up if you like what you saw, or leave a thumbs down if you didn't care for what you saw, but leave me a comment as to what you didn't like so that I can improve, please. We'll see you next time.